This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast brought to you by Hoxo Media. And for those who are watching over on YouTube, you're in for a treat. We're in full Technicolor. And for those listening, just imagine every colour in the orange spectrum, pink, yellow, purple. I'm delighted to have a very colourful character. For those who follow me on LinkedIn, I do share a lot of Katrina's content. This is Katrina Collier. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Well, you need to get one of these groovy, very colourful backgrounds.
I'm very inferior. For those who are listening, she's literally surrounded in this beautiful aura of like orange and pink and gold.
It's a little like 70s psychedelic going on, isn't it?
It really is. Well, it's delightful that you've joined us today, because I know that we've been chatting online. For anyone that was on LinkedIn recently, you will see that I shared a post, and Katrina and I had a lot of online and offline conversations going on with regards to it. Yeah, but I think that the reason that we decided to bring you onto the channel now is because we want to make sure that we give some advice to a certain group of people. So to give some context to it, I shared a post, rather controversial post around the recent laws that were introduced in Texas surrounding the right to have an abortion. And it's obviously, I think, up for debate at the moment. I think the UN are saying that it's illegal, but that in Texas, if you find out you're pregnant after 6 weeks, it's actually going to be illegal to have an abortion. And I shared a post basically implying that it's the woman's right to choose. It's a very divisive post, and I shared it knowing full well that my content isn't going to appeal to everybody. However, there were a number of comments from people who, let's just say, made themselves a little bit unpopular, and then it created a debate between you and me, because obviously a large part, which I know you're going to do a full introduction around what job seekers need to do to make themselves stand out. And so I just wanted to contextualize it, because you and I could talk about hours. We could talk about everything. So for those who are not yet familiar with who you are and what you do, give us an introduction to what you do.
So I am Katrina Collier. Many of you know, if you're watching the video, you'll see I'm holding up my book. You'll know me as the author of The Robot Proof Recruiter. Though I didn't author it alone, there are 74 amazing people who helped me write this book. I am also, I'm a former agency recruiter, former in-house recruiter, former trainer. I am now a facilitator, mentor, speaker, and everything I do is about clearing the collaboration chaos that is in recruitment. So in other words, I want HR, hiring managers, and talent acquisition, or recruiters, I don't care where you fall, in-house or outside, I want them to work together properly so that people are treated right. That is the mission that I'm on, is to fix that, mostly through the workshops, some through the mastermind. And of course, I think the big thing that's really similar with Leisha and myself, it is Leisha, right? I'm just suddenly having one of those mental blanks that happens on a Thursday afternoon. We run our own businesses, so we can be a lot more honest online. And if people don't like what we write, well, that's okay. And most people do know me as the opinionated Aussie Brit.
Opinionated Aussie Brit who shares gorgeous photos of her doggies.
Yes.
He was sat next to you, but he's hidden by the orange and yellow. It's a beautiful introduction, and I'm glad that
actually he's yes.
We'll make sure if anyone has actually read your book that they can maybe put a comment about when they've read it. The Robot Proof Recruiter. And you also a podcast host. You share lots of live.
Oh yes, I am.
Podcasts and everything.
Yeah. And I must say, I did donate, because I'm an ambassador for Hope for Justice charity. I did donate my royalties from the book to Hope for Justice charity, which aims to end modern day slavery, impacting 40.3 million people. So you will see me plug it a lot, because it's like a shameless buy this book so they get royalties.
Absolutely. And we will ensure that this show has all the links to your charity too. So that's a very worthwhile cause. We're a huge believer in supporting whatever your charity is. It's very important that you do that. And I love that you've done that with your book. So thank you for your very distinct and colourful introduction. So
sorry, I've just rebranded to katrinacollier.com, and this is the colouring. I'm actually pulling like hand gestures, which is really not useful for the podcast, but at least for those watching on video.
We can just imagine it. Imagine, I don't know, like a hand puppet, but with no puppet. So you're right. You make a very valid point that we are in a privileged position as business owners that we can basically share what content we want to. I also think that you earn the right when you've earned credibility and that you've got experience doing a job that we do, where you engage with a lot of people independently, and ultimately every person and every human being on the planet is entitled to their own opinion. I've always said, I probably am Marmite, and I think you probably have a similar mantra.
I'm Vegemite.
Oh, there you go. So,
Totally.
Are available.
And I also think it's that thing of that with the work that I'm doing, the workshops that I run, they're very direct. They get to the bottom of what the recruitment problems are. They're quick fixes and this kind of thing. They're not for people who are resistant to change. So therefore, if they came along and saw one of my comments and went, oh, they're probably not the right client for me anyway. And but again, that privileged position of we've worked hard, we've done our own businesses, we don't have to work with everyone. But when you're a job seeker, and certainly a job seeker of a certain age group, because unfortunately ageism is quite real, you really can't be writing comments like, well, if HR look at my profile and don't want to recruit me, then they're all ignorant. Because everybody's going to read that on his LinkedIn profile and be like, yeah, moving on.
I think that this applies to all age groups in certain brackets. However, let's just say that the age group we're referring to, or the people that are in that age group, maybe are less aware of how important your social media footprint is. And I think that's really what we talk about today. I think
a lot of that comes from they haven't looked for a job in a long time. So it's, and I'm in that age group, well, very close to that age group. So but I work for myself again. And I do think that they're far more impacted. I think it is easier for younger people to get work. However, you're absolutely right. They can too post stuff they should not post.
I mean, look,
as can recruiters for that matter.
Without a shadow of a doubt. So let's be really specific here and give details. So because you do straddle all the time, so you're looking at things from as a facilitator, so both the brands, so the end user clients and the recruiters and the HR people. What we're talking about here in terms of what are those people doing to assess a potential candidate? So if you're listening to this and you're a job seeker, what Katrina's going to explain now what they're actually going to do when they get your CV or online application. This is the reality of what we're doing.
At an absolute bare minimum, they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. If your name is Googleable, like mine is, and I imagine yours is as well, when someone searches your name, up comes your Twitter and your Instagram and your Facebook, and depending what. Now, whether you think that these are your private spaces, they can be looked at. So if you use those private spaces and post something publicly, so it's a public post that's anti something or very vocal about something, it's a hot climate. There's lots to be angry and annoyed about at the moment. That could work against you. Now, I'm not saying that all recruiters will go across and look at that, but we also don't know what hiring managers do. What was interesting was I took a snippet of that gentleman's comment and made a post of it a few days ago. And Sophie Power, who's an in-house recruiter, learned a really hard lesson. She sent a profile to a hiring manager, and the hiring manager actually looked just at his LinkedIn profile and went back to her and said, have you seen this? Because it highlighted what this person had commented on. And it wasn't the kind of person they would want working at that company, because his comment revealed a lot about his kind of behavior, if you will. So it's people can look, and why not? You look at us, why wouldn't we look at you? It's like,
absolutely.
We live in a consumer minded world. It's like you want to buy something, you go and look at the reviews, and you go and try and find the real information before you make that purchase. As a company or a recruitment agency helping a company, they're purchasing you. That sounds really shocking. I don't mean it like that, but they are.
Yeah.
So they want to reduce the risk involved, like you want to reduce the risk, and are they the right company for me? Am I going to actually really enjoy working there? So, and it does go two ways as well. I do think job seekers can see stuff about companies they don't necessarily want to see.
Yeah, of course. We've got guys. There are ways to review what an employer is actually like. There's endorsements.
Recruiting hell on Reddit is my all-time favorite. There are some. I was on there earlier, and I was actually properly crying from laughing at some of the stuff on there, because it's not funny, but it's so funny at the same time. Yeah,
I'll have to go and have a look at that afterwards. So I think the first sort of rule really is that if you're going to share something on social media that is public, anybody can see it, and that includes your potential future employer. And this is something where we're not talking about you not having an opinion, but maybe just be aware that if you're going to share something that makes you look either racist, sexist, ageist, discriminatory against
bigoted.
gender, religion. You've got to basically remember that. It's just a really simple rule. Everybody can see it. And like you say, through Google, it doesn't matter if your profile's private, you can still go and see someone's activity. I think that's a really
you can see all sorts of stuff.
Isn't it? I think you made that point on LinkedIn on my post that I think they're aware that, because maybe people think, because if let's say I go and comment on your post, I think this individual thought that didn't then relate to my LinkedIn feed, but it absolutely does.
You comment on my post, I'll see it on your profile, and my posts and all my replies, every single one of them will show every single comment I make. And it's about have an opinion and back it up, not like, so have an opinion about work. It's meant to be a professional network. Sometimes it's not. I shared a dog photo earlier, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn police were not like that, but it was related to work, because we were joking about like how you would attract staff to the company, and someone said something about dog, and I went, well, Banjo disagrees, and it was just a joke. But it's back up your opinion, your thinking. And that's the other thing I've seen, and actually I've seen this from recruiters, saying ridiculous things like, oh, don't use the open to work on your profile picture. Well, back it up. So maybe don't use it in that specific sector, in that specific city, because in his experience, he's discovered this, not just throw out a comment. So I think that's the same thing. But I mean, much more, we are talking about the racist comments, the bigoted comments, the ramming religion down people's throats. That's a big one at the moment. LinkedIn is not the place to do that. And it's not when you're job hunting anyway, But also, actually, if you're not job hunting, because I happen to know someone who does this quite a lot, because she gets attacked a lot on social media, because she's very vocal, as she should be, because it's related to what she does. But if you are working for a company and you write that post, it says Katrina Collier actually now it says Katrina Collier Limited, but it says the company name, and you can screenshot that, whatever that comment is, and send it to their employer. So on LinkedIn specifically, you are representing your company. And I guess that's where the professional side comes in. So when you're working as well, be aware, your comment isn't just about you. Your comment is reflecting that company.
And when we know that LinkedIn has definitely changed, certainly over the last 18 months, in terms of, content share is not just about professional jobs. It's not just about articles. It's a personal share space. I think the Facebook have disappeared. I mean, my most sort of shared, commented on, engaged with posts are very rarely actually a recruitment scenario. They're usually around one about my sobriety, it might be one about my children going back to school, it might be one about abortion or not. But it's usually, I think, because we're all we've humanized LinkedIn. And I think that's the big thing to remember, that whilst there's of that and personal content, you have to read the room. And the fact is, we're at a pivotal point, and you and I talked about this on Saturday on Messenger all night pretty much. We were leaving which was really hilarious, is that where we are now in 2021 is not the 1950s, and you are entitled to your opinion, but you will be a minority, and that minority is diminishing. We're not talking about overthrowing the patriarchy right now, but it's starting to happen.
It is happening,
and because of Generation Z, the new talent, the emerging talent of your 16-year-olds to 24-year-olds will not stand for any ism. They will not stand for it. No.
But actually, I think it's starting older than that, personally. I agree with you that it's happening, and I think a lot of it is, you have to remember, it's like it's been quite generational, and I'm a Gen X, but my oldest brother and sister are boomers. But you look at my mother in 1959, she got engaged to her first husband, she had to resign. She only got engaged and she had to resign. It was very much the patriarchy. And I don't think we were that impressed by that or tolerant of it. And it has started earlier than we think. But it's been harder for us. But technology has been the incredible enabler. So I believe from Gen X down, actually, because we are very technically savvy and quite capable of leaving the workforce as well and setting up on our own, and then creating businesses where we really care about our employees. And when we talk about the fall of the patriarchy, a lot of that is actually like the rise of the feminine, or really just asking people to balance their masculine and their feminine energy and just be a little less and a lot more like, okay, are we all okay?
Yeah.
You know, and that nurturing side, and get the balance back in.
Absolutely.
But it's going to happen, and it's great, and I so want to be here for the end of it.
I really hope I am, and vicariously I'm doing it through my daughter. But I think
it's only taken thousands of years to happen. We're totally off topic, of course, but that's okay.
I think you make a really good. I know we're similar.
Yeah, and I feel like this specific gentleman who was being so antagonistic. I mean, one, he didn't realize that I was deliberately continuing to write comments back, calmly, politely back, but to bring it out even more, so it would still show on his LinkedIn profile. It wasn't going to disappear while he was job hunting. But I just feel like he's resistant to it and unaware that this is what's happening, unaware that younger generations will not tolerate this. And if they're the ones sitting in the recruiter seat, as they often are in HR or external recruitment, that they will look and go, no, we don't need somebody who's so like, this is how life has to be. You need to be a lot more fluid in general, I think, in coping with change and all those sorts of things. I've changed that. Sorry?
Those sorts of people don't want to change, but I think it's
no, they're scared of change.
A couple of points regarding that point. First and foremost, he was absolutely in the minority as far as men were concerned. There were as many men as women supporting my post, which was remarkable, and really shooting him down.
Fantastic.
Really shooting him down. And I sent thank yous to each one of those. And the other thing I want to say is that, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm not into the whole labeling thing. And I think you can, for me, what I see is a seismic shift, and I do think technology has been the enabler.
Yeah.
Like you,
it has.
About how we rebelled as teenagers, and I was a teenager in the 80s and 90s. I think it's been coming possibly even since the 50s and 60s, is that technology
it has,
that we can talk to so many people in one go. That's the difference, opposed to just maybe telling your sister. But I think for me, I personally see this utopia, which I think is coming, that people are treated inclusively, regardless of who they are, what they are, where they're coming from, and actually stop labeling people as this is what I am, this is who I am. You know, we want people to feel comfortable. I think that what the pandemic did for me in terms of understanding reading the room is that everybody was ready for a change and ready for this capitalist, sort of free world. But the focus on money is actually, I do think, especially in recruitment, because obviously my recruiters, that is, companies are desperately now trying to backpedal and go, right, okay, well, yes, we've got a great commission structure, but actually let's do mental health, let's do wellbeing, let's do diversity and inclusion, let's do this, let's do that, because they know that to attract this, and I'm going to talk about the next generation as much as you and I,
of course,
and the people in between. Actually, those are the things that people are going to look at. And so job seekers alike and potential employers listening, I do think you have to understand that things have and are changing rapidly.
They're changing. But I feel also, though, that we understood more the ability to communicate before the tech. And so we're incredibly dynamic with it. But it's also that taking it and using it and being flexible. And this is where, they talk about this entrepreneurial mindset that the younger generations have. Well, we do as well. We're now getting to use it and embrace it. We might be a bit later, that's all. But what I was going to say is our ability to reach and our ability to create our own opportunities, that's what's so wonderfully different. And I think that's why the traditional companies are starting to fall. That whole, you see companies now and they're like, you will all come back into the office to work. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? And so people are like, I don't really want to do that.
No.
So that hence they're concerned about the Great Resignation. And then the companies that realized really, really early, okay, we are going to have a hybrid model. What's that going to look like? How can we make sure everyone's still happy and engaged and part of it? And they've really embraced the tech to use it that way. It's exciting times. By the way, what I'm completely against when it comes to generational typecasting bollocks is when it is bollocks, when it is, oh, well, Gen X are like this and millennials are like this. And I'm sure I eat more avocados than any millennial I know. It's just, so that I'm dead against. But I think as far as coming into the workforce, having always used technology, the boomers don't understand it because of their age. They didn't have that. I only had it as I started in the workforce. And really it didn't take any impact till about 20 years ago. Nice. So it's that there are differences in that respect, but that ability to be able to go online and find people like me, like you were saying, we want to work with all sorts of different kinds of people, but we can go and find our tribe, if you will, of, you know, I've got an interest in this, where are they? And create openings. It's just different. It's just different. We had no visibility of jobs back then.
You were talking to Mr. X now, who is this particular gentleman that's an absolute baby boomer, that is probably something he's right. What would your advice be to him now in terms of auditing his social footprint? What does he do? What if he wakes up and goes, oh my God, what did I do? How do I get rid of all this? B, how does he make himself? He's not going to have a mindset shift overnight, but what can he do to make himself attractive? Because he's probably still got a few years of work left in him by the sounds of it, because he's open to work. So what would your advice be?
Well, he needs to mute himself a little bit, doesn't he? Unfortunately, he does, and that sounds absolutely horrid. But if the first thing he's going to do is sit in judgment on somebody because he's incredibly devout, that's not going to wash so well, depending on who his audience is. So he needs to know, who am I talking to? Like, who is recruiting? What are their expectations? What does the company look like? Oh, the company is quite liberal. Well, then they're not going to take me doing that. Now, I appreciate, I'm very much talking about this particular person's in Australia. We're here in the UK. Most of the Christian faith in the UK are pretty lapsed. I think it's pretty similar in Australia. There are other religions that are very devout here. So I am specifically talking about that. So, and therefore I think that we can't really stomach it when a Christian is being to us as Christians really devout. We're just like, can we just chill? Can we just, you know, it doesn't have its space. So there'd be that. But I think actually the other thing to really watch out for, other than going through and deleting your posts and just you know, look at yourself like you're a stranger. You know, maybe use another browser, use the incognito, you know, and go and have a look and check what you've got out there. But just be aware as well, if you start messaging somebody abuse, they're going to screenshot that and share it publicly. So watch for that as well. Don't think just because, you know, I privately messaged Lisha that she can't just screenshot it and go, whoa. And I've had that happen out of something really innocent I said, and I was humiliated. It actually got put on a slide on stage, and it was a private message, and it wasn't even that bad, but I was humiliated. So that's
awful. Yeah, no,
be aware.
But you know, because we've all got phones, you know, any text message. My advice is this: anything that you want to say that isn't audio, as in, but a voice can still be recorded.
But not a podcast or a video.
Anything that can be snapshotted, you've got to take 5 seconds, then take 10 seconds and go, do I really want to say this? And then fair enough, go for it. But be careful of the language that you use, and be mindful of the fact that not everyone is going to agree with it, but you've got to just sometimes, I think there's a lot of keyboard warrior about him, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard as well. So, you know, I'll go to write a reply and then I'll go, we'll just delete that. It's surprising that I do that, as opinionated as I am. But like earlier, I shared a post because I am just laughing. I mean, there's so many recruiter job opportunities at the moment, and all the posts are really boring. Like, we, of all people, should know not to put boring job posts out for recruiters, surely. Anyway, somebody said something about, I think they should all be shared. That's the kind thing to do. And I'm thinking, so does she mean I'm unkind? And I was getting quite hurt, because it was like, I shared this actually saying, like, guys, up the ante. There's lots and lots of people looking for recruiters. You need to stand out. So it came from kindness. We should think I was unkind. And then you start having this internal dialogue because of how it was phrased. Now, she may not have meant it that way, and that's the problem. It's text. It's the written word. There's no emojis necessarily at the end to go, I'm winky winky, or, you know, heart, or to give me some idea what she meant. So again, it adds a whole other layer of, you're a job seeker. Be careful, because it can be open to interpretation in multiple ways.
Definitely.
That funny little 4-line post has exploded, by the way. It's had the most number of views, and I'm like, it was the laziest post I've written in ages. I didn't even offer any advice. It just went boom.
No, but it's opinionated, and it's true. That's why
maybe I should have actually added a few points of what you could do. It's like, oh, cool.
No, look, I absolutely agree. And although we're recording this now to share in September 2021, if you're listening to this way after and you're wondering what this is all about, maybe drop me or Katrina a message and we'll try and remember. But it should hopefully have.
There's no chance I'll have remembered by then. Perimenopause brain. It's gone by the weekend.
I will remembered because I remember everything. I can remember my first placement from 1998. I will, but I want this to be an evergreen because I think it's really important.
Yeah, it is.
You know, if you're listening to this now, you don't know where you're going to be in 6 months' time, 12 months' time. And actually, for recruiters and for leaders and for talent acquisition people listening, it still goes for everything that you do and you say on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram. Just remember, we can all see your social media footprint.
Totally. And honestly, if you would not say that in front of your grandmother or grandfather, it's probably now the generation we need to say, because I think our parents are quite cool. But if you wouldn't say that in front of them, you do not put it online. It just the rule of thumb.
That if that's not a place to leave it, I don't know what is. Well, I just think, and above all else, just be kind in what you say. If you can't be helpful, you know, my grandma used to say, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And actually she was right, because be mean about it. You can have an opinion, but be kind and careful in the words that you use. So less judgy, have an opinion, be strong-willed, all of those things are absolutely fine, but just bear in mind who you're.
Be careful. A screenshot is forever. Social media follows you to the grave, as Steve Levy would say.
It's very true. Well, from a very orange, yellow and pink Katrina Collier and from Leisha Holmes here at Key Recruitment for the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.